Hello, everybody, and welcome to Grow Your Design Business Strategies for Winning and Managing Luxury Clients. My name is Stefan Rabimov, and I lead content marketing for House Pro. Working with luxury clients can bring your firm high margins and potentially give you a showcase project for your portfolio. But how do you attract clients on the higher end of the budget spectrum if they're not your typical market niche? How do you scale your business to win high-end projects? What are the unique needs and expectations of luxury clients, and how do you deliver that exceptional design experience? These are some of the questions that we will address today as I'm joined by our expert panelists and successful interior design business owners, Ann Lopez of Studio 790, and Stephanie Lindsey and Jessica Nelson of Etch Design Group. Welcome, panelists.
Thank
Please
you.
take a moment and introduce yourselves to our audience today. Let's start with you, Ann.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I'm Ann Lopez. I am the owner and creative director of Studio 790. We're based in Miami, Florida. We are a luxury interior design firm focused on hospitality, residential, and commercial. And I have a wonderful team of about 9 women supporting behind the scenes and in front of the scenes as well. So it's an honor to be here. We hope you all leave better and more equipped to deal with your luxury clients.
Thank you, Ann. And Stephanie, would you introduce Edge Design Group?
Sure. So Jessica and I own Etch Design Group in Austin, Texas, and we focus on high-end residential and then also boutique commercial projects as well. And we started about 10 years ago with Etch Design Group, and we have a team of 10 as well.
Fantastic. Very much appreciate your introductions. And for our amazing audience today, please know that we're recording this webinar and we will share the recording with all of you, and we'll post it also on House Pro Learn. And I also would like to invite you to drop your questions into Q&A chat area of our webinar dashboard throughout this discussion. And we will do our best to address your questions in the moment or towards the end of the webinar, where I will make sure to leave enough time for all of your questions. And to help us continue to make these webinars relevant for your businesses, I encourage your responses to a few quick polls that I will post throughout the webinar today. So let's begin our discussion with a definition to help us all align. What does it mean to be a luxury client? I imagine to attract a luxury client, it's a good idea to identify what the client is. We know those clients tend to have higher budgets, but there are quite a lot of other factors that characterize this segment. So how each of you would define a luxury client? What are some of the common characteristics that you have experienced dealing with that?
So from the initial inquiry, it's always interesting to me because they don't typically talk about money. Most of the time, it's about the experience. What is our background? How many times have we done this? They talk about the personalization and the things that mean a lot to them for the project, but they don't always necessarily talk about cost.
Interesting. Anne?
Yeah, that's interesting, right? Because you think that it's luxury and it's all about money, but it often isn't. I emulate that sentiment. I think for us, ours is a lot about values, right? Does this client align with our company values, with our beliefs? And we often really get that understanding in the introduction of, this client in the discovery meetings, and understanding, what they're after and the language they use and why they want an interior designer, and, just really getting to know them. Because as we all know, you're going to be with them maybe for 1 to 2 years, give or take, depending on the type of job, of course. So just that value alignment, if it hits, what we're looking for, because we're both interviewing each other, when that happens, we internally celebrate that, because we're like, this is a luxury client, right? And it isn't just about money for them. There is something really special about the way that they're approaching this, and the generosity and the kindness and so forth. So it's a little softer how we view it, but yeah, that's part of it.
I think another thing that I would add is that typically when we're talking with a luxury client, they really talk about the value for like the self-expression that, you know, they want something that's very unique and reflective of their personality, their lifestyle, their unique tastes, and they don't mind paying for that. In fact, usually cost is not even mentioned. They have a very high level of what it is that they expect and want to make sure whenever they're interviewing you as a potential interior designer that you can provide the level of service that really meets and exceeds their needs.
If you think about your specific markets in Florida and in Texas, what is an average, from your experience, budget that luxury clients tend to spend on like a kitchen redesign or a bathroom redesign as a potential signal for our audience to understand that, hey, that's the budget that they tend to agree with or work with for these types of projects?
I think in South Florida, I would say from a budget perspective on kitchen design, and of course there's so many different factors that go into this, but you're looking at least six figures, and that's true across a lot of different markets. Mm-hmm. And I think that six figures, what does that mean? Is it 100,000? Is it 300,000? I think a lot of those details do depend on what they care about, because we have often found that a luxury client, they also have a level of practicality in their life, and not all of them, right? Some of them don't, but some of them do. And so when they're designing and they're talking to us about their needs, or not designing, but working with us on their design needs, hearing from them and having them articulate, maybe the stone is the most important thing in the kitchen, or maybe the functionality of the cabinetry and the interior hardware and all of those things that can add to the cost. Like, I think that's a big factor. And on the bathroom side, I would say half of that, 50,000 for a gut renovation to start. Again, totally depends. And we've done it for cheaper and we've done it for more, but on the luxury end, we're starting at those prices for sure.
Mm-hmm. Jessica, Stephanie, anything else to add in terms of the numbers in your specific market?
I would say she's on key there in terms of cost. So dependent upon the level of quality of materials and construction and what it is that they're wanting, I think it just goes back to the rule of thumb of properly asking the right questions up front, when you're in, like, before really the design process even starts, to really understand what's most important for the client. Because if they are very particular about the construction of a cabinet, it's not going to be $100,000 kitchen. It's going to be a $200,000 kitchen. So, or more. So it just really depends on what's most important for the client, and really understanding that from, those early on phone calls and, client communications, and, just kind of detailing your budget from there. And really, at the end of the day, I mean, we're going to make material selections, but the construction is going to be what the construction is. And so really getting them with the proper, support from general contractor to be able to have those discussions with you is really important as well.
What's clear is that luxury clients have the money to spend on their needs and wants. But of course, in addition to spending a lot on their projects, luxury clients tend to have higher expectations for the work, as well as the experience that they will get during the process. Can you talk a little bit about what defines a luxury project in your view, or from your experience?
I mean, from our, or Stephanie, do you want to go?
You go ahead.
Okay. From our lens, I think there's once you sign the contract, there's a trust, and they've hired us for a reason, and they're surrendered from the beginning. We have a great example of a client right now that it's been probably one of the best projects we've had, a residential new build. And from the beginning, they have used language like, we're hiring you for a reason and we trust you. And so we're going to default to you. And I think that of course it helps us and it builds our trust back to them. And so it sets the tone for the relationship. I think that's a big thing when they're surrendered and they're like, I've hired you and I don't want to do the work and I don't want to micromanage this. I don't have time. These people, usually they're pretty busy, whether it's with their family, the businesses they own, the investments they have to oversee, whatever that looks like. They've hired us to do the work. And so they want to take a step back and, of course, be informed along the way. And there's many touch points, of course, but we have found that the ones that will take that step back and let us do the job that they've hired us for are the ones that are, in our mind, are the luxury clients.
There's always the opposite of that, right? The
Yes.
luxury client that likes to get involved,
Yes.
really values the money that they're spending, and in some ways does micromanage the process. Stephanie, have you experienced that, and how do you deal with a client like that?
Yeah. So it's funny because what Anne said is exactly what I was thinking. Trust. I mean, it sets the foundation for the whole project. And for us, in order to keep that trust, really being transparent and setting expectations are the two things that keep that going, because they need to understand that we're being honest with them and that we have their best interests at heart. Like, that's why we're here, not because of something we're profiting from, but because we really want the best outcome for them. And so that transparency and trust is really important. At the same time, we have to be one step ahead of them and making sure that we're setting proper expectations and anticipating what they could potentially wonder about next or question next. Because if we already alleviate it before they think about it, then it's easy throughout the whole process.
Nice. Thanks for this. And I think in some ways we are ready now to jump into a conversation about how does one begin attracting luxury clients? Could some of you share some of the strategies or tips that have effectively helped you attract luxury clients, or in what ways do you tailor your marketing approach?
So for us, to me, I go back to, where do those come from? Where do those clients find us, and how? And so for us, really, we've analyzed it over the years, and the numbers have always shown it's referrals. It's rare that a luxury client reaches out because they found us somewhere on social media. Most of the time, that trust factor that we talked about is really important in all of their relationships. And so if they are referred a designer or an architect or a builder or a professional in general that comes from a source they already trust, then there's already instinctively a trust there. So for us, it's actually, obviously marketing is always important, and there has to be a portfolio that they'll resonate with and verbiage, so on and so forth. But building relationships with others in the industry is really key to then getting those luxury clients.
Yeah, Stephanie, I hear you. Leveraging networking, referrals, and ultimately some of the strategic partnerships is a good way to attract luxury clients. But I also imagine how you present your firm to the world with its entire portfolio and other things that maybe Anne can allude to. They can also bring you some of those higher end client leads.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. And I love this conversation because I'm sure there's all the people listening are in different seasons of their business. And our season, we're in year 6. And these amazing ladies are a handful of years ahead of us. So don't compare, right? But just learn from each other. I think that's a really important thing, because for us, I would say only in the last maybe 2 years, we've started to get those luxury clients. So if you're out there and you're like, well, it's not a referral for me because I don't have one yet, so what do I do? So I'll answer that, because we go all in from a marketing perspective. And full disclosure, we're not paying for anything. But I came from a marketing background. And so how we, portray our website and the language we use and who we are, my biggest thing is authenticity. So as a company and as a brand, this is who we are. I don't want to attract somebody that's not going to align, right, with our values. I don't want to be somebody that we're not, or pretend we're even more higher end than we really are. And so authenticity in our marketing is what has really helped us, and I think is setting us apart, because there's only one of me, and there's only one of you, and there's only one of your company. And so you automatically bring something different, and that will inevitably attract that, first luxury client. That, luxury for you might be X, and for me it might be Y, and for Stephanie and Jessica it might be Z. Did I say all those letters right? I don't know. But so for us, it's the marketing has been huge, and I promise I'm not trying to plug this, but the client I just referred to, they found us on Houzz. It's a younger couple that was, they're building their first home, and the lead came through Houzz. And I fully define them as luxury. Is it our highest revenue client we have? No. But when I think about revenue, profitability, relationship, the aesthetic that, we're producing for them, the fun we're having with them, they're hitting all the marks for us. So our marketing on Houzz has been advantageous. It's part of our full marketing process when we launch our project reveals. And search engine optimization is huge. So those two factors, SEO and Houzz, have really helped us step into the luxury market. And again, we're still early on, but yeah.
I want to press on that just a little bit more in terms of the value of the online branding. Can you talk, all of you, a little bit about when you started investing in the right kind of online branding, whether it's higher end photography services, better copy, etc., shifted your business towards this type of client? Stephanie?
I would say absolutely. I think it's tough when you're starting out, because you don't have the high budget to be able to invest in really spectacular photography. Like you do as much as you can when you can, but I think you have to build on that. Obviously we're 10 years in business now, and I think it was probably year 5 where the stylist that we would hire for photo shoots, or the photographer that we would hire for photography, that we could afford something that was, more than when we started out. And, you can't, it's tough, because in order to attract the right clients, you also need to portray yourself, in a certain light. And, it's tough to do that starting out, and we all get that, right? But I think, you kind of build on it over time. And, I think the more that you visually put yourself out there that aligns with your ideal client, the more you're going to attract back. Mm-hmm. And so, but I also will say that goes into processes as well. So, being that we are 10 years in, we've built a very tried and true process in how we manage our projects. Whether it doesn't matter if you're a luxury client, if it's a $500,000 remodel or a $5 million remodel, we have a very tried and true process that we follow. And that's one of the things that we kind of hang our hat on whenever we are talking to any potential client, because people like to hear about the process. People like to hear that it works. We do not stray from that process. There's always flexibility in terms of working with people and how they want to be worked with. But in terms of our process, we've done this for long enough. We know what works and what does not. And when we see clients trying to kind of deviate from that process, it's kind of a red flag for us. And we're like, hey, let's reset expectations here. Let's, try and get things back on track. And if we can't do that, that's a conversation that we have to have with the client. But that is something that luxury clients do appreciate as well, is that process. They need to feel confident that we can deliver on what it is that we're saying that we're going to deliver on. And, we can remain flexible in certain ways to accommodate client preferences, whether that be communication methods or specific design elements. We find that, when we deviate from that process, it always leads to issues. So I think being really transparent about what works best will always provide the best outcome and helps kind of move negotiations forward more quickly.
And what I'm hearing is from all of you is that a good foundational element for that type of client and that type of project and that type of work is trust. Can you talk a little bit about what are some of the key factors in building trust with luxury clients, and how do you maintain those relationships?
I think I say this phrase a lot, ABCD, which is always be consistently disciplined. And I think that's a thing you can use in your life, in your business, etc. But trust is built on consistency, right? And so if you are consistent to, I told you this is a process, we're following the process. If I told you I was going to call you back, I did call you back. If I told you I was going to resource this to make it better for you, and I do that on time, these are pretty like easy examples I'm giving, but I sometimes think we overcomplicate it and we think it has to be bigger and a whole thing. And often it doesn't. Sometimes it does, but often it doesn't. It's just, how do you show up for that person and allow what you told them that you were going to do, that you do it, and you do it even better. You do it, in advance than you said you would. So this consistency in the relationship, I think, really helps build that foundation. And back to authenticity too, the other point I would add is what I told you I was going to give you, am I giving it to you? Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge thing. We've all had experiences at a restaurant, at a hotel, any, where you get somewhere and they told you they were going to do it this way and they didn't. So your expectations weren't met because of that. And unmet expectations are the root of disappointment. And so that's the other thing. So it goes back to your website and your marketing. Don't say one thing if you can't deliver on that thing. Just be who you are, where you're at in this season, knowing, because this webinar is called Grow Your Design Business, not, in the luxury segment, like we're all in different stages. So it does take that growth. And if you're here in the season now, be that in the season now, grow, be consistent, get the next client. And then before you know it, you'll be doing a House Pro webinar.
We have, and thank you for that, Anne. We have a couple questions from our audience that kind of perfectly aligning with the next segment of our conversation, which is, can you share a little bit about your both vetting process as well as onboarding process, a quote unquote sales process, in terms of this first interviews, any kind of vetting that you do, just, shed a little bit of light into your process of onboarding or finding or getting that client say yes.
So for the vetting process, we get an initial form, obviously, that gives us information. That gives me some pretty clear information to go off of. And from that, I draw a lot of conclusions. So again, if they write a paragraph about budget, then I know they're probably not. They're going to micromanage us. They're going to be involved in every little detail, which is totally fine. But I just want to know who it is I'm tailoring the conversation to. And so from that, we schedule an initial phone call. I know a lot of designers will do Zoom or meet in person. I do a phone call just because it's 15 minutes. I say, I just need 15 minutes of your time just to get a glimpse into your vision. And we talk about inspiration images and the style that they're going for, the functionality that they want to achieve. I also ask them, of the 3, design, budget, and timeline, what's most important to them. Again, trying to understand who they are and where their values lie. From that conversation, if we align, then we'll schedule an in-person walkthrough. And from that point, we have a PDF that we send to them that explains more about our team, our process, what to expect. And then after the initial walkthrough, then we also have a second PDF that we send to them that has additional information. And we feel like breaking it up into 2 is helpful, a little bit more digestible. We also brand it for them. So it's their name, their address. We do a little brief about them. So although we're very early in the process, they know that we're listening to them and that it's branded to them and not just a standard template that we're sending out. And then from there, after the meeting, if we all agree and want to move forward, then we sign the contract and kick off design. That's the short version. And how does yours differ?
Literally, it's the exact same thing. But I'm sitting here like, can I have a copy of that second one that you sent? Because I think that's a great idea, and I love like that you've personalized it. Because back to luxury, like those little things matter a whole lot. So I think that's like, I commend you guys. I haven't heard of that before. But apart from that second part, we do the exact same thing: intake form, the discovery call, we send our investment guide, and then we do a site inspection, and then we send a contract over.
A big question that often comes up, and I remember we talked about that in our brainstorm. Do you charge for your consulting? Do you charge a fee for your initial consulting or initial walkthrough?
Sometimes when I answer this question, I feel like I'm getting it wrong, but but I don't know who's grading me. We charge for the initial consultation, but if it's a referral, we don't charge because we feel like that's our ideal client and we want to build that relationship. Whereas if it's an inquiry that we don't have any connection to, I'm kind of testing the waters. If they say that they don't want to pay for initial consultation, then I already know we're not a good fit. They're just trying to interview 10 designers and see who's going to give them the best price. And that charge gives us some indicator of what kind of client they are.
Yeah, same here. We charge for our site inspection with the client, no matter what, even if it is a referral. My whole thing as a business, I'm like, time is money. So we're going to charge them for that. But more importantly is exactly what Stephanie said. If they don't flinch and they're like, perfect, amazing. And then another indicator is, oh, like, can you send me the invoice now for that? Like, we haven't even had the meeting. I'm like, okay, that's a good sign that, they value my time or my team's time and they're, willing to pay for it. And it's not necessarily, I know people are out there like, what do you charge? We charge $350 flat fee. It's an hour meeting, give or take. It doesn't matter. Like the dollar amount is less important. It's just, you're charging for your time, whatever, if it's $100 or $500, wherever you want to land, but it's an indicator, right, that this client probably is going to sign and probably be a good client. I mean, it's not the only indicator, of course, but it's one of a handful that we that trigger us to go, oh, okay, this is a good lead. Let's move it forward.
I'll add, from my experience talking to designers, those that do charge tend to also say, if you move forward with us, we'll credit that back to our collaboration, to our work and invoicing. So there's many opportunities for you to weave that feedback into the project and scale that up. Let's talk a little bit about managing that exceptional customer service, because that expectation is there from luxury clients, that tailored customer service approach. What are some of the extra measures do you take to ensure luxury clients feel valued and prioritized, that their time is valued, and the projects feel super customized to them?
I'll jump in quickly. I feel like Stephanie and Jessica will have more to add here, but one thing that comes to me is it's back to this personalization. When we think of luxury in the world, often it's personal. And so I think of our client list right now, and we have luxury clients that run the gamut. And one luxury client, he doesn't need the Zoom meetings and he doesn't need a lot of attention. I've noticed this. I mean, we've been working with him for over a year and he wants a Zoom maybe once a month. Like, it's a very unique thing. But this works for him. He's very busy. He travels all the time. And so we have to sort of conform to his schedule. And I realized like our process, I don't think was going to really work for him. So I asked him what would work. And this is what he told me. This is what we're doing. So back to like, there has to be a process, but for some of these people, you do have to personalize and customize that process. So again, to answer their question, it's ask them like, here's our process, but what works for you? What is your schedule like? And some demographics, they don't also want to be on Zoom. I want to be on Zoom all day long, but I have to realize some people they're not as comfortable on Zoom. So maybe they want the phone call, or on the opposite end, they want like touchy-feely in person more. And so how do you just edit your process a little to make sure that it still works within your framework, but you're listening a little bit more to them? So personalizing, just asking them. And don't feel stupid to ask those questions because they appreciate it. And we're not mind readers.
Right.
Jessica, what's your experience like? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think another big lesson with like luxury clients specifically is that they value the journey just as much as they do the destination. So it's not just about delivering this beautiful space. It's about how you make them feel throughout the process in doing it. And when you can provide a really seamless, stress-free experience while still exceeding their expectation, I think that's whenever you truly stand out with luxury clients. Think about it from the sense of like travel, right? Like luxury clients like luxury travel, right? And the reason why they like luxury travel is because it makes them feel a certain way. And whenever you're hiring an interior designer, we are a luxury service. And so you have to think about how you make them feel along the way. It is a journey together, and you're kind of creating this, understanding that you're going to personalize every aspect of their service from start to finish. And I think that, they want to walk away with something really unique to them, but they also focus on kind of tailoring every aspect of your service, whether that be design, communication. There's a process in which luxury clients, really gravitate towards, and you have to think about it from that standpoint. If I was a luxury client, what would I want? And maybe you don't know the answer to that. But you have to kind of put yourself in their shoes and say, like, I remember this experience that I had, that it made me feel a certain way. What was it about that experience that did that for you? And, kind of try and emulate that. So you have to kind of think in that mindset of luxury clients. My husband and I just did a 10-year anniversary for our wedding anniversary. And, we upgraded to, the nicest room. And one thing that they did was every time we went to dinner, the chef came out and said, hey, this is what we're having tonight. And like would do this whole presentation. And I was like, this is amazing. Like it made you feel so special. And, that's what luxury clients want. So you have to think in that mindset and, go from that standpoint.
So these small luxury touches that
absolutely
happen throughout your experience. So I'm curious, if I boil it down to nitty-gritty detail, do you bring white orchids to your demo or reveal day? I'm just curious, what are some of this kind of luxury, little small, attention that you give to your clients throughout the projects? I'm just curious if you do anything special like that.
Well, it made me think of actually some small things that I think are standard now, so we don't really think about them consciously often, but the conference room is always set up the same way. And so when they come in, they always have their notepad and their pen and their coffee. And if we know that they like a certain drink, a certain snack, a certain food, like we have it there. And if we don't know, because they're not the greatest at filling out surveys, if we don't know those things, then we'll have just a ton of options and ask them. And then after that first meeting, then we know, okay, this is something that they like. This is something that they don't like. And then we'll tailor that throughout meetings. So that's a really small thing. But we had a client, I remember we do an end of project interview at the end with each client. And one of the clients a couple years ago, she said, we absolutely loved the coffee at your office. Like of all the things that you're going to tell me at the end of the project, the coffee is what you remember. And she goes, yeah, I just remember I was so excited every time we had a meeting with you because I knew that you'd make it exactly how I like it. And with, and I just thought that was hilarious that that's what she remembered. But those little touches help. We also have little things throughout, like with a remodel, anytime they actually kick off construction, we always send them out, whether it be to a movie or restaurant or something, just have some kind of gift ready for them to get out of the house and remember that there's going to be life after this. It's just going to take some time, Yeah. So little things like that.
I love that you all of you are catering to these clients and their taste levels at every kind of step of the projects. But sometimes these types of clients might have a vision or a taste level that might conflict with your design vision, or they might have purchased some piece of furniture that might contradict with your, vision or mood board, etc. How do you reconcile these differences in kind of design vision with the client?
From our perspective, early on in the company, I'm looking at our brand values. We made a decision that to accept when that happens. Right. Like, meaning if the client already did it and, and you're like, we could fight with them a little bit and have a conversation, but we have a brand value called no ego amigo. And we're here to serve them. And if they really love that damn artwork that doesn't work in the space, but it really means something to them, we surrender it. I've done it the other way. We've done it the other way where, you have a conversation and this is why it doesn't work. And we've agreed upon this design blueprint. And as you can see, the red doesn't really go with what we were thinking. And it didn't always lead to a great positive conversation. And I handled it with grace and I just felt like this thing is personal to them. And back to luxury service, we will almost always surrender it. We will have a conversation, but we will almost always surrender it. Like, it's their home. It's not mine. It's not mine. I already have mine. I can do whatever I want with my home, but it's theirs. And if they love that sofa and it doesn't totally work with what we're doing, there's way bigger things in life to stress about. That's how we handle it. I know a lot of designers don't handle it that way, but it decreases our stress.
I love that answer. Jessica, Stephan, anything to add there?
Yeah, I think it's like, to Anne's point, you have to be flexible. I mean, it's not our house, it's their house that we're helping them design. We want it to be a reflection of them, and it's going to happen. When a client makes a last minute request or, an executive decision that maybe we didn't agree upon, you kind of have to focus on framing it as an opportunity to help elevate the project versus a negative something. I try and make sure to explain any implications that might be involved, specifically around, budget or timeline or overall vision of the project. There's always things that these decisions that our clients make can affect the overall, end value or goal. But I think you have to be flexible and keep the big picture in mind. We have one client who, she's a master at making up her mind and we'll go in this direction. And then she comes in for the meeting, we present it to her, and then she throws like a curveball. And what I found with her is, through the process of working with her on 3 projects now, is that she will always come around, but you have to, at that very moment, say, of course, we'll totally look into that for you. We'll be flexible, respond in a very graceful way that shows that you are listening and that you will work with them. But when you come back and present that idea that they had that maybe you don't love, tell them why it's not the best idea, and then show them a better option that she will fall in love with even more. And then 9 times out of 10, it will always work. You will have that 1% that doesn't work, and that's totally okay. You just have to accept it and keep moving forward and make sure that if there are implications to it, that you are voicing those in a very constructive manner that lets them know that, you guys all have the same end goal and you guys all want the exact same thing, which is a beautiful project that they are going to be in love with in the end. And that's your job. That's what you have to do.
I'm going to let you guys catch your breath, take a sip of water, and I'll send a poll through to our audience. Let us know what is the most pressing question on your mind right now as you think about the future of your business. We'll be curious for us to learn more about this question. But we talked a lot about how to vet, how to work with and manage luxury client expectation, delivering on exceptional customer service, and talking about some of the best practices and lessons learned. I'm curious, what are some of the most common mistakes to avoid when working with luxury clients, and what are some of the kind of best practices would you say you have learned in terms of working with luxury clients? So kind of two sides: mistakes to avoid and what are the best practices.
I thought of one funny one, and it'll be really short, and then Anne and Jess can bring it home. I I had a flashback as you were asking that question to our first real luxury client that came in the door, and we didn't have an office at the time. We were working out of the back of our trunks, and that's a whole other story. But we met them at a coffee shop, and that lesson learned, not what a luxury client wants. So we called them for feedback afterward, and they said, we decided to go with a different designer because you guys just felt unstable, and you don't have an office. We met at a coffee shop. Lesson learned. We got an office the next month.
Yeah, great point.
Yeah, and
impressions matter.
I will add to that. Sometimes it takes those hiccups along the way to know that you are not doing it right in order to do it right the next time. So you're going to have those, bumps in the road, those challenges, and it's up to you to figure out how you overcome them. At that point, it was funny because we were really battling this idea of having an office, and, we didn't want to be chained down. And, we felt like if we gave into that, it was going to be a really bad thing. And actually it was the most beautiful thing. And, it took that moment of reflection for us to say, okay, what is it that we really want here? Would we rather not be chained down to an office, or would we rather have the luxury clients and projects that we're wanting? And that was kind of that fork in the road of like, where do we go from here? And, fast forward to today, we've got a beautiful office, and, it's designed exactly as we would want it to be. We did a full remodel on it, and we have a great team. And so I think that you have, like, every challenge comes, an opportunity and a, just the willingness to move past it in whatever manner you want to move past it in. And so, it's mindset and figuring out what works best for you. So anyways, just a thought on that.
Well, this are great points. I'm thinking, at which point did each of you feel your business was ready to handle high-level luxury clients, and what are some of the tools you're using to manage them and to make sure that that experience is successful on both ends?
I think we knew we were ready. There was like a couple of our segments that were after. So on the hospitality side and event side, and then residential side, when we signed the contracts that had a couple extra zeros, it was like, okay, like somebody's believing in us, and we do believe in ourselves, right? But there is that vote of confidence that you get with that first one. And again, the first one to me might be different than the first one to somebody else, but I think that was it. Like, to have somebody believe in us that we can do this job just set us up. And then, okay, we have to make sure we can deliver this. So I think with any first time of doing anything, you don't do it perfectly. You make some mistakes. You have to iterate, just like Jessica said, right? It gives you opportunity to get better and to change some processes. And we've had to go through that. And you always have to go through it. I say it right now, we're in a growth season right now in our company. We're having growing pains, and it's painful. However, that pain is producing for us, and it's going to take us to the next level to get to that next level luxury client. So
yeah, you have to give to get. That's the golden rule.
mm-hmm.
And Jessica and Stephanie, I'm curious, what are some of the strategies do you use to establish kind of credibility with potential luxury clients? Like, how important is that perception? I think it's still an element that a lot of designers struggle with, is how to establish that credibility and perception that you can handle that type of customer or that type of project?
That's a good question. To me, I go back to Anne's comment about authenticity. Like, we're just honest, and we find little ways to plant seeds. And throughout the conversations, it's easy to just add in little things that could potentially make that client go, oh, they really do know what they're talking about. Like, brand name drops in a conversation, or well, the last time we had this project, which we just finished up a week ago, and they're like, oh, okay, so that was really recent, relevant. Kind of just little seeds here and there showing the experience that we have, the expertise that we have, that we've gone through the lessons learned. And so we're going to save them a lot from not having to go through those on their own. And just planting those little nuggets throughout, I think, just subtle hints.
I'll also add to that in that clients can see in what you present and in how you present, they're going to understand the type of design firm that you are. And so we've made it, a point in our business to really give as much information to these clients as we can in a very palatable way that is also very beautiful. And so we have a lot of touch points throughout the process and documents that we've created that really showcase our process, and it makes them feel like not only have we done this a million times before, but we get it. We also have a document that, in one of those ones that Stephanie had mentioned, that says like what past clients want you to know. And, we tailor that to the client and the type of project it is. And so, there's always things that you can do that I feel like show these luxury clients that you've done it before and that you are not new to this. You are a pro, you have all of the know-how, and you can execute on every level. So I think you have to show them, at every turn that you are the best fit for this type of project.
You guys talked a lot about having the right processes in place and supporting documentation. Can you talk a little bit about tools that you're using in terms of managing the projects and ensuring that you're delivering on these expectations for this kind of higher level?
Yeah. So I would say technology plays a huge role in how we manage multiple projects, because we have, at any given time, 50, 60 projects on the docket. And so it's a lot. So you have to be able to manage, every aspect from start to finish in a way that is very seamless. And, if you're a designer and you're listening to this, it's important to know that like AI is on the forefront, like it is happening. And we were kind of one of the early adopters of AI technologies, and we will continue to adapt and grow, with AI in really every aspect of our business. But using AI for some of the early design phases allows us to really work more efficiently. And, project management software like House Pro helps us stay on top of everything, from communications with clients to vendor coordination, managing all of our documentation and, at every level, really. But I think the level of organization ensures that we can really juggle multiple high-end projects without losing quality or attention to detail.
Thank you for that. There's a great question from the audience in terms of there's a prospective client that you feel like that might not be a good fit. And what are some of the tactful ways you convey to them, without closing any doors?
I mean, back to AI, we have AI help us write a very nice email, and then we use it as a template. That's what we've been doing. So, and it leaves the door open to a degree, but chances are if it's not a good fit, you're probably going to close the door at the end of the day, but you're going to do it with grace. We will also do a referral, right, to another design firm that we, may think it would be a good fit. But that's really sensitive, because depending on the red flags of the client, I'm also not going to hand that to somebody that I love and respect. So sometimes we don't even refer it, and we just decline it with grace.
Mm-hmm.
I will also add to that, in that you have to be very conscious of the reason in which you are giving them of not taking on a project. Because if you say, oh, well, you know what, our timeline just doesn't really align, we wouldn't be able to take this project on for the next 6 months, they will come back and say, oh, I will wait 6 months, it's not a problem. And then you're right back in the same situation. So you have to do it in a way that's very eloquent and just says, we really appreciate you reaching out to us, but unfortunately, this just isn't in alignment with the type of, project that we are taking on, or with our insert, whatever here. And yes, use ChatGPT. Have them, have it write out some, good drafts for you. We actually have a custom ChatGPT that's like all of the emails that we would continually reference and say, hey, this is what's happening, like, help me out. So have that tool.
We're almost at the end of our conversation here, and I want to ask a little bit of kind of questions that tie in more into storytelling. I feel like for luxury clients, they like to hear stories. They like to really understand your design aesthetic and your design mentality. How important is storytelling in luxury design from your experience?
I think it's important. Again, I think it depends on the client, but if you have a client, I'll give you an example. We have a client right now. It's technically a small project, but I would consider it luxury. It's small just because it's a small scope of work. But the work and the client, I would put in that category. And this client loves Taylor Swift and loves concerts and loves like experiences. And so we storytell in that regard. We share experiences, and it just makes us relatable, and it makes us human. And so there's like the relational storytelling, like, how do I build this relationship so that they know I'm on their page? Like we both can go to the Taylor Swift concert in this example, right? Or, oh, I have stayed at the Ritz-Carlton, Bell Harbor. Know exactly what you're talking about. How about this experience? And then you start storytelling in that regard. And then there's, I think maybe, Stefan, you were also asking about like storytelling your designs. Like, how does that play into it? And I don't know that I have a great example on that, other than it's personal. Their story needs to be theirs. And so just making sure your ears are always on and your notes are always being taken in meetings and appointments, so that you can reference back, like, oh, I remember when you said, this type of art matters to you because of that trip you went on with your wife. And then it snowballs into something. So there's both. I think humans love stories. Like they're attracted to stories. So I think it's an important factor.
For all the luxury projects that you've completed, there's a lot of beautiful photography that I'm sure has been shot as part of your portfolio. Do you plan to put it all in a book one day?
That's funny, because Jess and I, we have a lot of ideas, and and so we have a long list that we keep track of. And we actually have 3 books that we want to do. One of them is a portfolio book. Yeah.
Nice. Really appreciate Anne's, Jessica's, and Stephanie's time today. All your insights were amazing. You answered a lot of questions from our audience, and the recording will be circulated to everybody who registered, and it will be published as well on House Pro Learn. Thank you again, and I wish everybody a wonderful rest of the day. Take care.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Bye.
Bye.